powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Betting that people are ready for the NFL season to start. You got a taste of football this weekend. College football is back, but the NFL takes over Thursday night. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN, Lions and Chiefs. And then, of course, on Sunday, we'll have the Eagles and the Patriots. Let's take a look at the latest transactions and what the Eagles will look like as they set to start the season this Sunday. Adam Caplan is here from the Inside the Birds podcast, and he joins me now here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Adam, we got a game this weekend. How are you, bud?
I'm good. Yeah, look, we got a game Thursday night. Unfortunately, Travis Kelce injured his knee in practice today, so it's not good for him to be available. That would absolutely crush their offense. And we know that Chris Jones is still holding out for a new contract. Their star defensive tackle, so that could mar that game. And as we transition, Mike, to the Patriots hosting the Eagles, you get the Tom Brady situation. They're going to honor him. We'll see emotionally if that takes anything out of the Patriots. Sometimes that could work against the home team. And by the way, this one just happened yesterday. Their starting right tackle, Riley Reif, went on IR. That was a surprise. And that's a problem. They have no depth now. Every backup, they're going to start Calvin Anderson there. Every backup that the Patriots have on the offensive line has never started an NFL game. So they can't afford another injury, and this is good news for the Eagles.
Yes, and of course, later on in the week, we'll continue to look at the injury reports when they get released. But let's take a look at what the Eagles look like heading into that game. The practice squad is now set. They got some workouts. They still need a punter. So what are some of the things that you take from the way they kind of formulated this roster on the offensive side?
Yeah, so we didn't talk last week, Mike. So just give you a quick idea of how surprising it is and how other leagues, how other teams see it. There were two surprises. Now, one that was not a surprise is that the Eagles kept 4 receivers. We actually talked about this leading up to their initial 53-man roster set. The Eagles only kept 4 receivers on their 53-man roster. On their practice squad, now it's interesting the way they did this. Devin Allen, who's a kick returner, did punt return a little bit in practice, but he's a kickoff returner. He actually put together, Mike, the last couple of weeks, this is the best he'd looked as an Eagle for the time he's been here, but he passed through waivers unclaimed. He's on the practice squad. Joseph Ngata had a good training camp and did some good things in the preseason. Greg Ward, 7th year on and off the Eagles' 53-man roster practice squad. Doesn't seem like it, Mike, but yes, it is his 7th season. 2017 was his first season. It's hard to believe, but this is it. And remember, he was a punt returner also. And Britton Covey, he's back. He passed the waivers unclaimed. He's a punt returner, so they have all these punt returners and returners, so that's good. Brady Russell is Eagles executive Matt Russell's nephew. The Raven Clark is back for his 3rd tour duty. He just resigned this week. Brett Toth is back. Tyree Phillips is a good football player, formerly of the Ravens and the Giants. We're checking into this one. We'll check in with a Giants source this week and find out why they cut him. Well, the Eagles, he passed the waivers unclaimed. He's back. He's now on a practice squad. He's with the Eagles now for the first time. Good football player. This is a good developmental prospect. Julian Good-Jones, Mike, who was a guard who also might be called up on Saturday. They have till 4 p.m. Eastern to bring anyone off their practice squad. There's a possibility he gets called up to be the backup center. If not, it'll obviously be Cam Jurgens, who's starting at right guard, to be the backup center for Sunday's game. And Aaron Sipos, yes, you're right. They don't have a punter on the 53-man roster, but he will be their punter unless they change their mind and sign one of these veterans that they worked out. Blake Gillikin, who's a really good punter, formerly of the Saints. Pat O'Donnell, a veteran punter with the Bears and the Packers, who just got cut. And Colby Wadman, who's actually been with the Broncos and USFL teams. I don't know why they didn't sign Gillikin. Now remember, Mike, with these punters, these workouts are taped. They know what these guys look like. So now they've looked at them. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, and remember we talked about this earlier, Sipos is also the holder as well, so you wonder how much that factors into do one of these punters that they worked out blow their doors off so much that they want to change the holder?
Yeah, it's really important. The operation, as we've called it, important to get that rhythm. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like you just throw a guy out there and it'll work. You need to practice a lot to do this. And look, if you remember when Jake Elliott was struggling 3 years ago before Sirianni's group came in here, a big part of it was the operation, as we talked about when it happened. We were told then, and it needed to be cleaned up, and they cleaned it up. So that's why Elliott now is a really good kicker. But that's what the offense looks like, Mike. Now, defensively, they only have one. Now, it's not like they need any more D tackles. Another thing that surprised other NFL teams is the Eagles kept 7 defensive tackles. Sure, they may only dress 5 or even 4, so 2 or 3 are going to sit every week. Probably 2. That makes a lot of sense because some of those D tackles could play at end if they need them to. But they have Thomas Booker was with them, who is a guy that I know they had their eye on, and they brought him to their practice squad. A guy who's been a drafted player for another team. Tron Jackson's back. Now, Karan Johnson, remember now, Karan Johnson was cut, so was Tywan Mullen, a corner who they just signed. I don't even know if he got a practice in, because they re-signed Nick Morrow, and we had said this prior to on our last show, that they really need to bring back Nick Morrow because they don't have a veteran backup inside linebacker. Now they do on the practice squad with Ben Van Sumeren, who's a really good special teams player, and Mekhi Garner and Tristan McCullum are also in the practice squad. Tristan McCullum, we really never talked about him in training camp, but I'm glad that they're willing to take another look at him.
Yeah, I liked him at the safety. I know he had some corner experience. I definitely liked what I saw from him. But you mentioned Morrow. They brought him back because he, I guess, was trying to find a 53 spot somewhere, nowhere to be found. So now they luck out by getting a veteran presence back here.
Right, and remember, because he's a veteran, he was not subject to waivers, so his contract was terminated. He could go wherever he wanted, literally as soon as they cut him. And, Mike, you're right, because look at this situation. Here's a veteran who's not won a lot in his career, and he has a chance to win a Super Bowl here. So why not bring him back? It's Cunningham and Dean are your starters. Christian Ellis is your third inside linebacker. They don't have a fourth one. As Mosher noted, Patrick Johnson in the final preseason game got some reps at inside linebacker. So if they don't activate Morrow for this game, Patrick Johnson, if he is active, to not only play on specials, because that's really why you would activate him, he'd also be a fourth inside linebacker if needed.
Oh, I want to ask you this. You mentioned Patrick Johnson. Him and Nolan Smith are listed as co-backups here. We talked about this earlier. You know, Johnson potentially plays special teams. Nolan Smith might not. Is there a potential in your mind that Smith doesn't dress for the game on Sunday?
Only, Mike, if his shoulder, and by the way, he's practicing. He should be available, as I understanding, barring a setback. Remember, he missed like 6 straight practices, but he worked starting last week, and he worked in Monday's light workout, and we'll see what happens. The practice week really starts tomorrow, and it goes Thursday and Friday. As long as he works, he'll definitely play. But right now, we expect him to play.
Because that would mean they're dressing, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edge rushers?
Well, here's the thing, though. Remember now, Reddick is playing with that surgically repaired thumb. You don't know how effective he'll be. Brandon Graham is a part-time player. He doesn't play full-time snaps. Sweat definitely does. There's no question about it. Patrick Johnson he doesn't really play on defense unless they need him to.
Right.
And then Nolan Smith would. So it would really make no sense to me why he wouldn't. That would definitely surprise me if he's healthy enough to play.
All right. So that's what the defense kind of looks like with the practice squad and everything. And then, of course, one of the bigger conversations over the training camp was running back. They have them all listed essentially as starters on their depth chart that was released earlier today. You've got basically all 5 guys still listed as the starting running backs there. But really 4, because Trey Sermon did not make the final roster here. They got Gainwell, Penny, Scott, and Swift all listed as the starters. And then there's Trey Sermon, who was put on the IR. Yeah,
so, Mike, just so you know, I don't look at the depth charts anymore. The club send, and they're complete nonsense. I just don't look at them. They're not accurate. They're done often with interns, and sometimes they don't even talk to the coach.
But you got to go out of your way, though. Somebody has to tell those PR guys or whoever puts this together, hey, don't list any running. Somebody's got to tell them that, right?
Sure, maybe they do, but I don't waste my time with them because they don't mean anything. What I do is I look just to make sure that I know currently who's on the football team in case some change has been made. It's always good to know that. But I know we know on Inside the Birds who's starting where, and we have a pretty good idea about it. Running back, look, it's Gainwell's up first, most likely, but it's a total committee. as we called it before training camp started, it's a situational backfield. Gainwell will probably, at least initially, might get the most snaps of all their backs. He's a short yardage back. When they're backed up inside their own 10, he's their burrower to get it out of there. Who the heck knew, Mike, when he came out of Memphis? In fact, his head coach, Ryan Silverfield, came on our show twice and never mentioned it, that it'd be a short yardage back. We kind of laughed at that one. But Gainwell's done a nice job. He carved out a role, particularly late last season, after a rough start. Penny could handle volume if they need him to. Scott's the jack of all trades. And DeAndre Swift is that explosive change-up pass catcher. And that's the thing, Mike, and we'll talk Friday about this when we preview the game. I'd be absolutely floored if the backs don't get at least 7 pass targets in this game. I'd be very surprised.
Wow, all right. That's something definitely.
A lot, but I expect it.
That's something to keep an eye on, yes. Yep. Trey Sermon on the IR. He passed through waivers unclaimed. Are you surprised that nobody picked him up?
Here's the thing. Unless other clubs talk to the agent, there wouldn't be any way to know exactly what his injury is. Now, we know that he had the ankle injury. We saw him look fine in practice when he practiced 2 weeks ago, Mike, against the Colts on that Tuesday, and then he apparently has another injury. What we were told is that it's likely short-term IR, which means he could be available if he heals up well. Now, we don't know, by the way, if it's another injury. We just know he had an ankle injury previously. We don't know if it's a new one or not, but he could be available after week 4. And, oh, by the way, again, the first real injury report, because we saw the Lions and Chiefs injury report that came out yesterday because they have a game Thursday. The first Eagles injury report will come out after 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. So we look forward to seeing them.
Yes, and you mentioned Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick. Anybody else that's in doubt that will play this weekend, or is this team pretty healthy entering week 1? Yeah,
I'm trying to think of anyone else here that we know of who was injured. No, everyone came back that we know of. No, I'm going through their 53-man roster right now. They're the only 2 that we're aware of. All the other guys came back. Patrick Johnson came back from his moderate ankle sprain about a week and a half before training camp ended. We were able to see him practice. We know about the other 2 injuries. Now, what we have to look at is what kind of wrap, or does he have a club? Hassan Reddick on that surgically repaired right thumb. We need to take a look at that. That is going to be a concern for the way that he tackles Mike, and obviously the way he chases the quarterback. He's just got to get used to it, and he talked about this with the media last week. But, look, we know about the 2 guys who will not play this season, and this is a big deal, which we're going to talk more about on Friday, the special teams coverage, which, was even though it improved late last season, still was disappointing. With Zach McPherson out for the season and Sean Bradley out for the season. Bradley only played on special teams, and McPherson would have had a role on outside corner, inside slot, and also on special teams, one of the best special teams players they have in terms of coverage, Mike. That's not good. That field position, as good as the Eagles are, Mike, that is a big worry, a concern, a little bit bigger than most people give it credit for, because these games are so tight, and it's rare. You don't typically blow teams out. We know the Eagles did last season, but the schedule's harder, and it's going to be harder for them to do that.
One last thing for Adam Caplan, InsideTheBirds.com, and the Inside the Birds podcast. Today, Nick Sirianni was asked, hey, care to announce your starting safety? And he shook his head no, and he basically looks at the depth chart. There's Reed Blankenship listed as one safety. Justin Evans and Terrell Evans are listed as co-starters at the other safety. Is that a surprise? Sidney Brown, by the way, is listed as the backup to Blankenship.
No, that's one of the few things that's probably accurate. We've deemed it. We still think this is true. Terrell Evans 1, Justin Evans 1A. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Evans started over Edmonds. It's just a matter of how comfortable that the coaches are. And by the way, Evans could play the slot. He played it with the Saints last year. He played nickel to revive his career after not playing for 3 straight seasons. So this is a guy who's been really a nice story, but very, very under-discussed story about the revival of Justin Evans with the Eagles here. And I know he's got an opportunity here because they're not very good at safety overall. But just that's one we're going to keep an eye on. Would not surprise me at all also if they had a rotation in that game, but we'll see.
And then the other one, I guess, would be the linebacker. Cunningham, Ellis are both listed as starters there. Do you see it that way as well?
I'd be stunned if it's not Dean and Cunningham. No, I mean, I don't. Did they really write Ellis and Cunningham as starters over Dean?
No, well, Dean is the starter at one at the Mike, and the Will, it is Zach Cunningham / Christian Ellis.
Cunningham starting, yeah. I mean, something highly unforeseen. And by the way, they don't typically rotate their ILBs, and we know in dime it probably will be, when they use one linebacker, should be Dean. Now, the one thing, and we're going to talk more about this on Friday, because I'm telling you the Patriots know this, they know that Zach Cunningham is their starting will linebacker of their two inside backers. You watch, they'll go after him on first and second down. That's the one area where Zach Cunningham is not strong in coverage.
Yep. All right, there you go. A look at the Eagles roster as it is now put together, getting ready for week number 1 Sunday. Adam's back on Friday. Adam, Inside the Birds pod and the Inside the Birds platforms, you guys are ready? Are you all geared up, ready to go?
Cannot wait. I can't wait for Thursday's game either, but I'm disappointed about the Chris Jones holdout and Travis Kelce with the hyperextended knee. That's not good. I want a great game, and this kind of taints it a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that injury today, Travis Kelce, keep an eye on that. I actually have my fantasy football draft tonight. Now that we're talking about this, I'm glad that it just came up. I totally forgot that my draft was tonight.
Yeah, because I have a high stakes one night at 8 for the NFSC, and I'm not drafting them. I don't take tight ends in round 1, but geez, that's not good.
Well, I have like the 7th pick. I'm kind of in no man's land right there, and it's like, there's a lot of people that that are saying take Kelce in the first round. But man, if he doesn't play in week 1, but hey, the fun is back. We're back. Football at 4 is back. Never really went anywhere, but Adam's back on Friday here on the Sports Bash. Adam, appreciate it, bud.
Thank you.